That's terrible. That's terrible. I practiced so hard. Oh my gosh. Thank you. All right. So real briefly, I did this. Kids bar mitzvah in April, totally empathize, totally sympathize. And here we are, and I don't have my mask on. So I took the mask off, but I didn't unmute. It was, it was a two-step process instead of a one-step process. Well, now that the mood is lightened. What we're going to talk about tonight is this document that I'm sharing on the screen in Zoom land. And does that mean that Canner was on mute the whole time too? Oh, well, Canner welcomed everybody also. So there you go. She was very happy. If you have any questions, please call her about the content. And she'll send everybody her cell phone number so you can call her late at night and ask her questions, so on and so forth. So, all right. Anything else anybody wants to let me know before thank you for letting me know that. All right. We've got this document on the screen. We're going to go over the protocols. Anything that we go over tonight is effective as of 10/20. Is that today? October 20th is active now. And is subject to change based on what happens with the pandemic. Right? As we all know, things have changed for better, for worse, for better, for worse for the 18 months now. And hopefully what I'm telling you today will lighten up by the time the springtime comes around, and will be less, but with all the variants, we never know what's going to happen. So that's the disclaimer. What I'm telling you is valid right now. It is subject to change. We do have a committee called the Sheer Open Committee that has worked really hard over the past 18 months to get us back into the building, to get us to a point where we can have bar mitzvah services and bat mitzvah services in the sanctuary. Started off, I think the maximum amount of people that we were allowing in was 25 people, and everybody had to be masked and everybody had to be social distanced. And everybody had to sanitize their hands, and it was, it was right. We had a mask for the microphone, and it slowly crept up, and the number crept up, and with vaccinations, we're in a much better place than we were 18 months ago. But everything that the committee has done has been with some Jewish principles, some Jewish values in place. One of them, the most important, is saving a life and keeping everybody healthy. And it's our responsibility as Jews, as human beings, as global citizens, to make sure that we are keeping everybody safe and healthy, and that we are following the protocols, and that we are really making certain that the day is special, but also that if you wake up on that morning, or your child wakes up on that morning and they have a fever, God forbid, right? They have a fever, or they develop a really bad cold 2 days beforehand, and you're going to take them for a COVID test because they're not vaccinated, or you just don't know. You call the canner, you call the rabbi, you call me, even if it's Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. And we will prepare a Zoom service or a live stream service from your home. But if you feel like you are putting anybody else in jeopardy, our clergy, myself, who would most likely be here, your guests, it's really important that you call us and say, look, we're not feeling well. We may have COVID. We're not sure. We have to do an about face, and we will make it happen for you. And we'll get you a Zoom link. And we'll get, you'll get on the computer, and we'll get you all the stuff that you need. But if you're sick, or your child is sick, or your child's sibling is sick, please, please, please take our health into consideration and let us know. Do not ibuprofen up or Tylenol up like I used to do with my kids in the preschool when, 20 years ago, and I had to go to work, right? So keeping everybody healthy, saving a life. Do not put a stumbling block in front of anybody. We don't want to put anybody in a situation where they're unhealthy or they're unsafe. And Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Bazeh. All of Israel is responsible for one another. Okay. As we get closer to your bar mitzvah date, 10 days out, we need a complete guest list. I need you to send me a complete guest list. That guest list is going to be cross-referenced with a bar mitzvah registration form that you will email to all of your guests. That will tell us their names, who's coming with them, and we'll ask them to fill out the BREAT, or the sort of the health waiver that we have. And if I don't have their name on the guest list, and or I don't have a signed waiver, it's going to be really hard for me to allow them to come into the building. So please take that. Those are like the two protocols that we're taking very seriously here. Everybody good so far with that? Okay. Let me scroll down on the Zoom here on the page. I can figure out how to do that. Okay. All right. Please do not attend if you have tested positive for COVID-19 and are required to quarantine. You have been tested for COVID-19 and are awaiting results of that test. You are unvaccinated, have been within 6 feet of someone for 10 minutes or longer who has COVID-19 or is awaiting test results. If you have any of the symptoms that we just talked about, if someone in your household has COVID-19, and international travel. If someone is coming to your event from out of the country, they need to have a negative COVID test done result from a test taken 3 to 5 days before the bar mitzvah date. So if you have people coming from Israel or France or Italy, they need to have, and you need to show us that negative COVID test. Okay. Out of state, we're no longer requiring that. That's okay. I'm on page 2 now of the handout. I talked about earlier that there were restrictions on the amount of people that you could invite or could come into the sanctuary. I'm happy to let you know that we are no longer limiting the amount of people that are coming in. We still are requiring masks, especially because if you have 150 people all sitting in those 2 rows, everybody's going to be sort of right up against each other. So we're still requiring masks, except for on the bima. So the rabbi may or may not choose to wear a mask on any given day. The cantor may or may not choose to. Your child, when they are chanting from the Torah or leading prayers, will not have to wear a mask. When they are not doing that and they're sitting back down in their seat, they have to put their mask back on. When you come up to bless your child, or if you come up for an aliyah, you can take your mask off, and you can do that. If you are scheduling photography in the sanctuary, first of all, you have to call Jody Friedman in the office, or email Jody. That's at the bottom of the page. You have to call or email Jody and schedule a time to come in for photographs. If you are in the photograph, you can have your mask off. If you're not in the pictures, please keep your masks on. I'm usually here checking people in for every bar mitzvah. And I usually show up and there's, mom and dad and kids and siblings and aunts and uncles and grandparents, and no one has their mask on. And I understand pods and I understand, but we really need you to follow these protocols and keep the mask on if you are out there and all together with the photographer. So I talked about, I will send everybody the link that you can put on your invitation if you'd like, so that people will have that registration link. We're not requiring people to be vaccinated to come into the building. And let me scroll down a little bit. We're asking that since we're doing a check-in that you ask your guests to come 10 to 15 minutes before the start time of the service. In the morning, the start time is at 10:15, and in the evening for a Havdalah service, start time is at 4:30. So just a little bit in advance, so they can come and they can get seated and situated. if you are, and then the sort of the same protocols take place as before COVID. If you want to provide kippot yarmulkes for your guests, you can bring them to us in advance, and we'll put them in a basket. We'll put them out on the front table. Some people have gotten, masks with their child's name or a saying or a slogan. So if you want to do that, by all means, you can do that. We'll reserve a row in the front for your family. And if you need 2 rows, we'll reserve 2 rows, but you'll usually be here in advance. So you'll set that up for yourself. We have a live stream camera where we can broadcast the service to people who maybe are not comfortable coming into the sanctuary or who just can't get here. And if you are interested in having your service live streamed by us, there's no fee for that. You will usually get either myself or someone from my office to videotape that. And while I pride myself on being a wonderful videographer, it's not my actual profession. You can hire an outside company. Hi, Paul has been here, Lafayette Hill Studios, and others, to come in and set up a camera in the back, and they can live stream it. They can patch into our equipment and our sound system, and they can do the live stream. Torah passing, there's a Torah passing ceremony that used to be from grandparents to parents to children. We're now limiting that to just parents to their child. So grandparents not part of that component. We're also not walking the Torahs around for people to kiss them. Yes, Ken.
So we have done my grandparents, but we're still not walking.
Oh, so that's a change. Okay. So grandparents are now permitted up on the bima to do the Torah passing ceremony.
Yeah. So just if you want to tell people where the camera is for the live stream in case I haven't seen it, in case they want to decide.
Our camera's right back there in the corner.
So it's, it's off there. But you can, no, they zoom in. I mean, it looks fine, but
yeah. If you are interested in viewing a live stream service, send me an email, and I'll give you the dates of when we're live streaming them, and you can watch that. We have several lined up for morning services and several for afternoon services. I also have recordings of some of them that if there's nothing coming up, I can send you a link to a recording and you can watch that.
Are we still recording the way we've done in the past for them?
If you want your service recorded, it'll still be from that camera over there, even if you don't need it broadcast out to the world. The question was, are we still recording the service the way that we were before? And the answer is we have the capability to do it in the back. It's the same camera we would use for the live stream. If you just want it recorded and you don't need a broadcast, it's still the same thing. You'll just let me know you want a recording. Okay. We talked about photography. Please, it's going to be a very busy spring. There's a lot of mitzvahs in the springtime. Please make sure that you contact Jody sooner rather than later to schedule a time to be in the sanctuary to take pictures. Yes, Canner.
So another thing about scheduling pictures,
do you want to, when you talk, why don't you come up here? That way the people on Zoom.
That makes sense. Okay. Hi, since you didn't hear me before. When you do your pictures, you are able to do your pictures before the service. So if you don't want to get your hair done and get your dresses and get everything all dressed up on a different day, that is possible. You can do that. You just have to let Jody know in the office. You could do it in the morning. If you have an afternoon service, you can do it in the afternoon. That is all possible. So if, so just, yeah, Rachel. Yes.
Repeat the question.
Yes. So Rachel was asking if there is a rehearsal before the service. And the answer is yes. So I run an 1.5 hour rehearsal with each family. If it is a partnered service, the 2 families, I will run the service with for the service. So that'll be the two families, because I know there's a number of partnered services in the spring. And we will run this, we walk through the service. I show you where you stand for the passing, and you hold the Torah, and what does that feel like? And we're gonna, put your shoes on and make sure, they're not too high, and we're gonna trip or things like that. So I always run through that. And usually I have a few lessons before the rehearsal. I'll practice from the Torah scroll a couple of times. I'll have them practice their English and the prayers on the bima, just to get comfortable during like the half an hour lessons when I have with them, leading up to the rehearsal when we run through everything. Everyone who's honored does not need to come to the rehearsal. No. So the people I would say that need to be there, as much as possible, both parents, if possible, be there. If they're siblings, particularly if they're doing if they're a younger sibling and they're doing a reading, or they're an older sibling and they feel a little rusty doing the Aliyah, it would be great for them to come up and chant the Aliyah. If you have a younger sibling that feels maybe nervous about, I don't know, if they're helping to dress the Torah, it's the time to practice dressing the Torah and things like that. So, but you don't need everybody. That's not necessary. So you don't do it at the same time, but you like before or after, as long as you contact Jody and the space is available, you can work it out with it, so. And I will schedule those ahead of time with all of, with each family or two families as it applies. Yeah. So the morning service is typically done around 11:45, maybe 12. If there's two, it's going to be 12. And then the afternoon services are typically done by, let's see, 5:30, 5:45, 5:45. Yeah, 5:45. Good. I hope that, I say the thing about the photography just because I see people coming in you can do whatever makes you feel most comfortable, but just know that it is available to ask. I think it's more convenient, but maybe I don't like getting dressed up more than once than I have to. So, Rachel. So I don't know if you're going over this later, but photography is allowed during the service. It cannot be flash photography. They need to find a spot to be their one spot, usually, somewhere in the back. And then that is fine. Mm-hmm. So anybody had questions in this group? I'm looking at the chat because I did not look at the chat. Oh, no, that was just, we're on mute. Okay. That was from before. Okay.
Okay, yeah, so the photographer needs to be stationary. They can't just come down the aisle and start snapping, that's what the photographs are before the service. Or all of your vendors that you're having, whether you're doing photography or videography or live stream or whatever, they need to be on your guest list. They need to fill out the waiver as well. The biggest change that we have to announce to you tonight is that we are now allowing private parties to take place in the social hall. Since it's a private party and it will not have the cantor or the rabbi or other staff members, there will be no restrictions. If it's directly after the service still has restrictions, have to wear masks. Once you go into the party, no restrictions. You can have as many people as you want. They can be masked, they can be unmasked, vaccinated, unvaccinated. It's your party, you're renting the space. You have the choice to do what you would like with your party. And that's perhaps the biggest change that people have asked about is when are we going to be, Congregational events. So if you were having a Friday night service and you wanted to have an oneg after the service, that's a little bit different because that's a public event. That's a congregational event. And at congregational events with eating, we are only allowing it if everybody is vaccinated. So that's the difference between a public event and a private event or a congregational event. Yes.
Are the Friday night services going in person? I know like the targets of child usually it's for prayer. Are they happening in person?
So right now they're sort of on a rotating schedule of in-person and on Zoom. And that will be a question for Rabbi Briskin as to what will happen on the Friday night before your child's mitzvah.
I'll answer that question.
And or
I was
can.
gonna say, you're gonna end up asking me, so.
The question, sorry, the question out there is, will Friday night services all be in person come the springtime?
So what our schedule is right now at this time, which again, it could change by the time by the time we get there. But right now the schedule is only once a month we will be on Zoom, and the other times we are in person. I mean, I think there's the exception of like in December when it's on like New Year's Eve, whatever, like there's certain exceptions, but generally there is one service a month that's on Zoom, and we'll let you know if that is the service, but most of the time the service is in person. We have shifted to have the service be primarily in person. But like I said, well, as it gets closer, when you stop working with the tutor and you move over to me, like I will be able to tell you exactly as it gets closer. But that's essentially what our schedule is currently, which again, ever changing.
Right, and hopefully you'll be able to tell them the Friday night before they start with you about 2 months beforehand.
Yeah, usually three.
Right, so hopefully we'll have a schedule and we'll be able to tell you what will be going on your Friday night. And if you have a special request and you would like the service to be in person on that Friday night instead of Zoom, I would say get your request in now, and the sooner the better, so that the rabbi and cantor are able to plan that and know what they need to do. Okay, Ellen, have I left anything out of my spiel? Ellen's here not only because she has a mitzvah coming up, but to keep me honest. So anybody out in the Zoom land have any questions? If you do, if you could put them in the chat, that would be great.
I could look at my.
Sorry, we're getting a personal question. Hang on. From someone in the congregation.
When you move over to me, you want me to go there?
Yeah.
When it is time to switch over from your tutor to me, you will get an email. It usually comes from Jody that has a link to schedule 8 lesson times. So, and you'll click on this link and it will have you give like weekly lessons once a week with me. And it has my schedule on there. And so there's different days a week. And if you need to reschedule them, you just let me know when we switch them, or you can even, when you do it on that, there's a button that says reschedule and you can do that on there. But Jody will send that email out usually a couple of weeks ahead of time to let you know this is coming up to start scheduling lessons with Cantor starting the week of, and it will say the date. So if that makes sense.
Thanks, Kenna. Any other questions for me about what to expect? Okay, my email address, I believe, is on here, correct, at the bottom of the page. And my my office number. If you have any questions, if something wasn't clear and you're just shy about asking, please call me, email me, and We'll get you all taken care of. As your date gets closer, if, you know, no matter what question you have, please call, please email. We were here to help you. We're here to make this a wonderful experience. And, you know, thank you for coming tonight and thank you for being on Zoom. And I'm glad that someone told me I was muted for the first 17 minutes. Okay, yes, Stu.
You mentioned that the vendors have to fill out the form. Is each individual employee from that vendor fill out or the company itself?
Each individual should fill it out. Yeah. Anybody, he asked if there's going to be multiple photographers. Can the company just fill out the waiver one time, or does each individual photographer need to fill out the waiver? And the answer is each individual photographer would need to fill out the waiver. Anybody who's coming into the building needs to fill it out individually. If you are sending it, so let me retract that a little bit. If you're inviting a family of 5 or a husband and wife, one person from that household can fill out the waiver for that household. Where in the case of the photographers, they're from different households, they each have to fill it out. But you can fill it out for your spouse and your children. Yes, Rachel. Anybody who comes into the building, any vendor has to fill out the brief. Yep. Okay. Because it's not about necessarily protocols, it's about keeping people safe and healthy and reminding them that they have an obligation to keep people safe. Okay. That's my spiel. And thank you for coming. Thank you for coming out. And call me, email me. We're here to help you. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Good night.